Hi, this is Kim Vopney, the fitness doula, and I'm here today talking to you about the Epi No. Wanted to give you a couple of best practices for use. So the Epi No is a product designed in Germany. Epi No stands for no episiotomy, and it was designed as a preventive tool for women to use during pregnancy to help prepare their pelvic floor and perineum for childbirth, with the aim of reducing things like episiotomy, tearing, postpartum incontinence, and what have you. So the Epi No can be used at any point in your pregnancy for the up-down training, which is strength and relax. So I'm going to show you a little bit about what that means right now. The balloon is a silicone balloon. In the deflated mode, the interior part, when you squish it down, is about the size of a small tampon. Okay? And you want to lubricate the balloon and or yourself prior to use. Once it's lubricated, you want to insert the balloon in the deflated mode up to the halfway mark. So you can kind of see that little indentation there. So that's roughly halfway. So we insert that into the vagina, and then at that point you now tighten up the small little nozzle on the side, and you're ready to go. Now we want to add a little bit of air into our balloon, so we're going to pump using the black pump on the handle. We're going to squeeze that gently, and a small amount of air has gone into the balloon. It does not matter what number you are at on the gauge. You want to see what number it is where you start, but it doesn't matter where that starting point is. So take note of that. It's at a 6 right now. And that is going to fluctuate for you on any given day depending on how much tension you have in your pelvic floor as well. So just take note of it from a starting reference point. It doesn't matter what that starting number is. So we have it inserted halfway. We've got our starting number on the gauge. And now I want to perform a pelvic floor contraction. So as I contract against the balloon, I should look and be able to see on the gauge that I can increase the number. So I should be able to move that needle upwards with every contraction. Okay? Once I can see that I can do that and I can move that, then I want to be able to increase the amount of time that I can hold that contraction. So I'm going to contract and hold for about 5-8 seconds or so, continuing to breathe while I do so. And then at the end of that 5 or 8 seconds, relaxing the pelvic floor and allow that needle to come back down to that starting number. Okay? And a lot of people ask me, what's the best position to be in when you're using the Epi No? And it really depends on where you're most comfortable. You can do it in a semi-reclined position. So if you're in bed, prop a couple of pillows up against your wall in a semi-reclined position. I do recommend that you put a small rolled up towel perhaps underneath your back so that you can keep a more neutral spine, which will allow your pelvic floor to function more appropriately. If you take yourself onto a side lying position, you can also do that. You can take a couple of pillows and put them in between your knees if it's hard to hold your top leg up. And you can perform the exercises in a side lying position. You could also do it in a standing position. So you can kind of play around where you feel most comfortable. The length of the tube limits you a little bit, but it does allow you some freedom of movement. The next question I get when you're doing it is, some people feel like the balloon is going to fall out, that it's too slippery, if it's too lubricated. And my answer there is it's not a problem if you want to hold it in. So if you're in, say, a semi-reclined position, and this is the way that I was doing it when I was using it when I was pregnant, you can put the balloon, the tube at the base of the balloon in between your middle and index finger. And as you insert it, I keep it inserted halfway, and then the heel of my hand would rest on my pubic bone. And all I'm doing, I'm not pushing the balloon in, I'm just preventing it from slipping out. So my fingers are there simply to prevent it from slipping out if I have too much lubrication or what have you. Okay? So it's not a problem if you have to hold it in. If you can do it without holding it in, great. There's no one way is better than another. It's whatever works best for you. So wherever you're able to keep it in at the halfway mark and get the best ability and function, that's the best place for you. So the up-down training, which I just showed you, when you contract and relax, can be done at any point in your pregnancy, whether you're 13 weeks or 33 weeks or anything in between. It's done for 10 minutes a day. And at the end of your 10 minutes, you want to let the air out. You want to wash with soap and water, air dry or towel dry, store it back in its storage pouch, ideally also back in the box. And you want to keep it away from children and pets, specifically dogs, because they happen to think that this looks like a really tasty Kong. So storing it away properly is of utmost importance as well in terms of keeping the longevity of your Epi No unit as well. Once you reach 37 weeks, so you're 3 weeks prior to delivery, you're now going to do the stretching component as well as the up-down training. So at the end of your 10 minutes of up-down training, contract and relax, you're now going to stretch the perineum. And you're going to do this for 10 minutes as well. And what you do here, you leave it inserted at the same halfway mark. Again, not paying attention to the gauge, you're just going to gradually inflate. So I'm just squeezing the pump. And you squeeze again until you feel slight discomfort or similar to when you're in a stretch. You only go so far. So once you've reached that point, I call it finding your edge. Once you've found that, you're going to stay there for 10 minutes. So you're just going to allow the balloon to just gently and gradually stretch the tissues around the vaginal opening for 10 minutes. It doesn't matter what number shows up on the gauge. In fact, you can just completely not pay attention to it at all. During that 10 minutes, I give people visualization in terms of relaxing and expanding, allowing, softening, whatever words are going to allow you to sort of yield to that resistance that you feel from the stretching. If you feel that the tension or that stretch sensation starts to lessen, you can add a tiny bit more. Again, you want to try to maintain that edge, so to speak, for the duration of that 10 minutes. At the end of the 10 minutes, what you want to do is allow your pelvic floor to relax. So in so doing, you want to soften, yield, let go, whatever images are going to work for you, and you want the balloon to come out inflated. The reason for that is it's sort of simulating what you need to do during your birth as well. You need to be able to relax those muscles and yield to the resistance that you feel as your baby is crowning and emerging through your vagina. So once the balloon comes out in the inflated mode, then what you do is you take the measurement template that's included in the box, and you want to hold your balloon up, and it's a range of, you can do centimeters or inches, but there's a 10 centimeter diameter measurement template here. So you want to take your balloon and figure out what your starting point is. So if this is your first day using it, you're going to hold it up, and you're going to be at, say, a 5 centimeter diameter. My first time was 4.5. Might be too much information, but thought I'd share it. What we're talking about is pelvic floor here. So at the end of the 3 weeks, ideally what will have happened is each day you're going to be able to inflate that balloon just a little bit more, hoping by the end of the 3 weeks you're at a 10 centimeter diameter. That's what your goal is. I reached 9.5. My child was born on his due date, and I was at 9.5 centimeters when I got there, so I was almost at the 10 centimeters, not quite. But each day you're able to gradually inflate it just a little bit more as those tissues continue to yield and relax. And then again, you want to wash with soap and water, store it away properly, and then you're done. So that's done daily. So from whenever you start in your pregnancy till 37 weeks, you do 10 minutes of up-down training. Once you reach 37 weeks, you do 10 minutes of up-down training, and then you do 10 minutes of the perineal stretching or massage or what have you. So that's a 20-minute total in your last 3 weeks of pregnancy. One of the biggest things that I found helpful with this was I bought it initially because I was afraid of tearing. I was afraid of tearing, and I wanted to do everything I possibly could to prevent that. What I found most useful for me, though, was the actual biofeedback component. So I was able to look at what my pelvic floor was doing. Did I have the ability to hold contractions? What was my endurance like? What was my strength? How far could I move my needle? And then what I've learned after in the research I've done and what have you is the importance of the relaxation. So I didn't necessarily take that into account when I was using it myself, but that's one of the most valuable tools I find about the Epi No is actually teaching people how to relax and let go. You need to be able to relax and let go to give birth to your babe. It helps with the stretching as well, and it gives you that mind-body connection of allowing something to come out of you. So it's an interesting process from that point of view. Restoratively, so after 6 weeks, you can use the tool again restoratively. So we're looking to regain the tone, the strength, the function, regardless of whether you had an intact perineum or not. We need to restore some form and function. So I definitely recommend that you see a pelvic floor physiotherapist around the 6 week postpartum mark. But you can also start to use your Epi No as well again. And what you're doing now is the up-down training. So again, you insert it in the deflated mode. You want to lubricate your balloon. You insert it halfway. You tighten up your nozzle. You add a little bit of air with the pump just to the point where you feel like you have something to squeeze against. Make note of your starting number. Again, it doesn't matter where that is. Just make note of what the number is where you start. And then you perform the same thing. You contract. Hold that for a time of, say, 5 to 8 seconds or so, and then relax. And also, if you can coordinate it with your breathing, ideally performing a contraction as you exhale. So you want to take an inhale, allow the pelvic floor to expand and relax. Exhale, contract your pelvic floor and hold, and then inhale as you relax. So I hope you found that helpful. And if you have any other questions, please visit fitnessdoula.com or send me an email. I'd be happy to help. Thanks so much.